Today we're going to take a look at the best Onslaught tanks. My name is Ladpad and welcome to the video. I've compiled 3 replays right here, and these are going to be some of the best games that I've had in the game mode overall. And we're starting off with what I declared as the best Onslaught tank in the game, at least in this iteration of Onslaught 2024. And right away you're going to see exactly what is phenomenal about this tank. You have the best tier 10 heavy tank alpha damage in the game. Lots of E100 drivers are going to run with 128mm, which is going to leave this tank alone with its 750 alpha damage. And so if you're able to get into some of these matchups where you're just kind of poking and seeing what you can do day by day, time by time, you're going to outtrade your opponents in a situation like this. And combine that with when you press your 7 key ability, which hopefully I will do soon, you now have quite good damage per minute. And so this tank just becomes phenomenally powerful in a situation like this. I've got more health than this AMX M4 does. I've got more alpha damage than that tank does, and I can just keep slapping him for enormous sums of his hit points. Also, take a look at my positioning. I decide that with my tanks, my allies pushing on the northern road, I needed to get in there and help out as much as I could. And so sometimes off angles will work, especially on the more open maps, but in general you want to get stuck into the fight as often as possible, because if your gun isn't firing and one of their guns is, that means you're at a disadvantage. I've realized right now I've got an excellent setup. I am out of the line of fire. I'm able to put in shells to the side with very little risk, and I'm firing on reload, which is perhaps the most important part. And so I'm going to keep abusing this situation and help focus down a mouse which just got isolated on its own. That's what you really can't do. You do not want to get isolated ever in this game mode. Now I take a look at my platoon mate, shout out to May School, and I realize that if we can help sandwich this 60 TP in a crossfire, he's going to die very, very quickly. So I pop my ability, and I see the side of the rear of his turret, and we're going to continue just demolishing everything in front of us. We're only up 1500 HP, but we have more guns in the fight, and that means we're going to have a better opportunity to really increase this advantage. I'm going to continue pushing forward. I've got all my health, and if I slow down, that gives them a chance to recover and try to get back into this game. So I'm not going to allow that to happen. Our 1600 health advantage now becomes 2500 after that shot, and right here I'm going to swing around and try to put in one final shot for the kill. Off he goes, and at this point I honestly thought that the game was over. I was saying, almost doing some final messages, and I realized there's 2 tanks left, and we've got a little bit more cleanup to do. The MX finally puts a shell into me, and I am completely unworried. I see this leopard, put in a shot. Once again, the fact that in this game mode all tanks are getting a 0.15 accuracy buff just makes it much, much more powerful. One of the great weaknesses of the 60 TP is it's got pretty mediocre gun handling, and its accuracy is not very strong. So the fact that that has been significantly buffed in this game mode takes one of your main disadvantages and gets rid of it, and now you get all the benefits of the 60 TP in the first place. And with this shell, I end the game with almost 8.7 thousand damage and a fantastic victory. In our second replay, I'll be playing in my favorite tank, the Strv 103B. I realize that I've shown this tank a lot in my recent videos. However, I keep having phenomenal games, and so I'm going to keep showing them so long as this keeps occurring. I should make just a brief note that unfortunately What Replays seems to be down or bugged. The creator who staffs it, I believe completely on his own, without wargaming support whatsoever, has unfortunately not updated to the new patch, and I've not figured out how to utilize old replays quite yet without getting some viruses on my computer. Now, let's take a look at what the Strv is absolutely phenomenal at. On a map like Glacier, you can shoot from long range and you have perfect accuracy with your 7 key ability. And not only do you have perfect accuracy, you also have a very large damage boost. it can get up to, I believe, 35% extra damage for every shell that you're shooting at the max capacity. And if you're able to penetrate shots at range at past 250 meters, then you are able to hit, you are able to resupply your ability, so it procs one skin. Notice here, I actually wait to shoot that shell until I can pop my 7 key. That adds 35% extra damage, and now I am walloping this unfortunate player for about 520-ish damage per shell, and I'm reloading every give or take 5 seconds. So this is incredible alpha damage. This is, I think, over 6,000 DPM. And when I talked about the Strv being situationally overpowered, I think that Glacier is a map I would always want to have a Strv on, because you can control so many different lines of fire. Anytime they poke over this ridge, I'm able to whack them for a significant chunk of their health. If they wanted to go in that little gorge, that little valley between the two peaks, then I'm going to have shots on them as well. If they try to make a massive push over, I can delete an entire tank in about 30 seconds, and it's just a brutal tank to play against. Combine that with the excellent camo of this thing, and you're going to just rack up immense amounts of damage, and it really stops your opponents from a lot of their pushes or their aggression that they'd otherwise like to do. And so the general rule of thumb is, if you can find a long firing range in the Strv, if you can find a spot where the enemies have to push through, you can do phenomenal things. And already, just a few minutes into this replay, I'm up to 5.3 thousand damage. Now is a situation where the Strv is admittedly pretty weak. I've got this TVP below me, but I am communicating with my platoon mate about knocking out this TVP, because if he dies, then I've got an opportunity to put shells in as my opponents try to fight off my allies. Unfortunately, TVP is going to be much faster than me in the siege mode, so I pop up, get him spotted, and my platoon mate puts in an excellent shot and clears this off. However, our team made an ill-fated push. We had a Foch B that pushed along with a few allies down into the C1, C2 region, and unfortunately they ended up dying and losing. And so really they should have been able to win that, but it was not to be in this case. And now my platoon mate falls, dealing with a near full HP object 430U, and I'm going to try to help out my bat chat. I pop my 7 key. Unbelievably, that shell misses with near perfect accuracy. I'm not exactly sure how that happens, and it's going to cost my bat chat considerable amounts of HP. They also have 2 people on the cap, so I know that I've got to get up there and try to stop the cap going right now. I've got 12 seconds. I'm going to pop up. I'm going to put in 1 shell into the TVP, try to scare him off, and this gives me 6 seconds, 5 seconds now to reset the cap. I'm going to pop around. I'm going to put in the shell right there, resetting the cap just in time. Now it's me in a 1v4, and this is not looking very good. I'm down. It was 1700 health, and now I've got to turn around. A TVP is going to be on my rear end. However, I've purposely made sure to put myself with really a rock to my rear so that I can't be completely flanked. I get quite lucky that the 60 TP bounces. Now I've got 2 one-shot tanks in front of me. I put in a good shot to the 60 TP, and now I'm getting pretty excited. Maybe I can pull this out, and then my platoon mate lets me know that that object 430U was in fact full health. And I've got to kill the Super Conqueror, and I've got to knock out a 430U, and it's not looking quite good. I notice that the communication alley is lit up, so I know where the 430U is coming, and my hope was maybe to kill the Super Conqueror in time before the 430U gets there, but it was not to be. And I will add that I did hit a few blind shells, I believe, in this game, and so this is going to be about 8,500 damage. That was just a little bit too little and too late, and I do not complete the 1v4. And we'll take a look at our final replay of the day. We are on Overlord, and I am once again playing the Strv 103B. Now this is a map that's a little less obvious to see why a Strv would be useful. In fact, there's generally not a lot of long-range sniping lanes to be had, but I think this is a great time to discuss one area that the STRV excels at that you might not think about very often. The STRV has phenomenal gun depression, and combined with these fantastic little bushes scattered all around, this means that I can stay unspotted and have really better gun depression than most heavy tanks and mediums, and I can abuse this mechanic over and over again with my 7 key. So I've had a lot of success on this map in my STRV. I released a very similar video to this replay a few days ago, and I'm going to show exactly what this tank is capable of once again. We'll also notice that my team starts with a 5,500 damage disparity. They went full, almost full heavy tank all across the board. They've got tons of 60 TPs, and so this means that we have to do a lot more damage than we otherwise would have to, because we're just at a disadvantage right away. Also, 60 TPs have 152mm guns, and that means they can overmatch a large chunk of my armor. So right away, I'm at a severe disadvantage in this matchup. I put in a shell, go ahead and raise my gun slightly, and that manages to protect me from the 60 TP's shell. However, I've received 2 artillery strikes. The entire enemy team, they dropped both arty strikes on me, and so I am significantly hurting in this position. However, I need to keep my gun in the fight, because if my gun is not in the fight, then my team is at a major disadvantage. And I know that these bushes right here give me an excellent chance to use my gun depression, and they can help me use my 7 key. So I popped the 7 key, I'm waiting to get a good shot, and 538. That is not an uncommon roll when you're using the 7 key. With pitch perfect accuracy almost all throughout, I'm going to be able to cupola snipe these 60 TPs. My marksmanship is not going to be perfect. That one was a little too far to the left, but it's going to be good enough to put a wall of hurt into my opponents. Only at 2,100 damage right now. I see the 60 TPs popping up, but I cannot allow my IS-4 to be completely on his own. That was a blind fire right there. I unfortunately just missed the top of that cupola, and now it's time to get serious. Now it's time to hit some shots, lad. So I'm zoning in, trying to look for a good spot. That one bounces too. Absolutely poor marksmanship going on right here, and here's the point where I turn it around. That's 468. I'm using my ability key. Right here, my ability runs out, unfortunately, because I'm not shooting past 250mm. And I should have used my 7 key in that scenario, but ended up forgetting to, and that bites me in the rear end because that shot actually misses where I had aimed it. This one, however, flies true, and we're now in a 3v3, down 2,000 hit points, and I realize that these 60 TPs are very likely to push at my mediums, and I need to be in a position to stop their push. So I'm falling back because I know on this eastern ridge that I've got an excellent opportunity to shoot in. However, it looks like they're pushing just a little bit faster than I was perhaps prepared for, so I'm going to finally get up on this ridge. My CS has already taken a shell in return, and now I'm going to pop that 7 key and get to work. Right here, I didn't have the full 7 key ability, it wasn't at max rank, and so I'm not getting the full damage. However, because I'm getting unspotted every 3 seconds, all of these shells do have the boost applied. So I'm putting in the shells. I want to get the kill on the 60 TP, but can't manage it. I'm going to go here. I put in a good shot, and I know that he's struggling with his gun depression, so I'm going to put in the tracking shell. Unfortunately, he has a repair kit, and once again, I am in a 1 versus 2 scenario. On the last 1 versus 2, I was not successful. I ended up losing that one, and on this one, we'll have to see if things go just a little bit better. I'm going to pick up the arty strike because I'm at a 700 health disparity. That's really unfortunate. And one really good thing that happens is because I'm getting the arty strike, one of them gets off the cap. I would presume that, looking at their health, the one-shot 60 TP decided it would be a foolish decision to stay on the cap. So he backs off, and that actually gives me a greater opportunity to reset. Otherwise, I might have had to plow straight in and then die. So I'm going to pop up and see what I can see in this situation. I know I've got the bushes, I know I've got the view range and spotting just advantage over my opponents, but unfortunately I don't see them at all, and I know if I push too closely, they're just going to one-shot me and end this game. So I'm going to grab the comm center, and because it only takes 7 seconds, it's going to be very difficult for them to respond in time. I press F twice, sending me in reverse, getting me away from them, and I have to make a decision. Do I secure a kill, or do I end the cap pressure? And I decide I had to end that cap. This now means that one of their players is probably going to take 2 shots for me to kill, and the other one is going to take me just a 1 shot. I'm going to pop back over this ridge, hoping to catch them unawares, and here is where something really important happens. This is 32 meters away. However, in this game mode, the proxy spotting, normally in game, if you're within 50 meters of somebody, you will spot them every single time. However, that's been reduced to 25 meters in this game mode, and so I got just within about 7 meters, and I popped my 7 key at almost full boost, and that gives me 545 damage, just enough to kill that 60 TP in a final shot. And now it's me in a 1 versus 1 with a 1-shot 60 TP. He has the armor, he has really the flexibility of gun, having that turret, but I have something that's going to be much more valuable. I have mobility, and I have my camo. I am not jumping on the artillery strike because I know if I show him where I am, I'm going to be in a world of hurt. However, I find him, and now I've got a lot of crazy thoughts running through my head. I can see that he's headed this direction, and I'm guessing that he's going to go for the artillery strike. If I can get onto the comms tower before he gets halfway through his cap, I'll definitively get the comms tower. He gets on the artillery strike, and that means it takes 15 seconds for him to cap. It only takes 7 seconds for me to get this comms tower, and so that is a huge moment in this game, because I'll get the comms tower, meaning I can see him whenever I want, and now he's got the artillery strike. With the arty strike, he cannot kill me in a single shot. That's a massive advantage for me. Versus if I can pick up the artillery strike over on the other flank, I'm going to be able to kill him with it, with his measly 238 remaining hit points. Now I'm going to bait his shell because I know he's probably going to put that dead center. I react very nicely, and the arty strike ends up missing me. This is very similar to a replay you may have seen earlier. Now I'm going to pop on to the artillery strike, and I know that he's too slow to catch up to me. Just in case, I'm going to move slightly over into more cover. I'm going to cap this artillery strike, and I'm going to pop the 9 and then the 8 key right away, and I know roughly where he's going to be. I pop it, put it a little far forward in front of him, and I secure the game. And that's going to be about 6,500 damage, factoring in some of the blind shells, and a pretty fantastic victory in a very tense situation. Let's take a quick look at the post-game stats. Please ignore this symbol. For whatever reason, the World of Tanks replays seems to be bugged on Wargaming's side, and that seems to be a this patch thing. This is the 60 TP game. We end up with 8,600 damage, 4 kills, which is over half the enemy team, and really was just a complete stomp. We certainly had to pull our weight, but with some strong teammates alongside of us, we were able to do quite a bit. And notably, in this game mode, you can actually make a decent profit, even firing a absolute ton of gold. And so, penetrating all my shelves, running a booster, I end up with a 70,000 credit profit. Taking a look at our Strv 103B game, just as the first game was incredibly easy and we got to shoot pretty much on reload, this one was incredibly difficult. We did manage to output an enormous sum of damage, some of the highest I've had in all of Onslaught during this season. However, it was not to be, because although I end up with 8,400, our Foch and our VZ, which I believe were the ones that flanked around, ended up with only 3,400 combined. And if you are not pulling your weight, if you're doing 0 damage in some of these games, then honestly you are the one that's throwing the game for your team. Every player's got to have as much output as possible. And unfortunately, at least for me, the enemy Object 430U was just too good for me to overcome. And although we lose a little bit of profit, we still get an interesting game to be proud of. In the final game of the day, probably our lowest damage total, but I think the win I'm proudest of, because this one really felt like it was going to be lost when the 360 TPs pushed over the ridgeline. It looked like our 2 medium tanks were sunk, and I was going to be cannon fodder to be mopped up later. However, using the particular advantages of the STRV, I was able to really abuse bush mechanics, abuse how difficult spotting has become in the Onslaught meta, and clean up 6.3 thousand and a very nifty 1 versus 2 using some of the artillery strikes. And so in conclusion, what I want to say about Onslaught as a whole, I really think this game mode has a ton of fun moments. In each one of these games, I had an absolute blast. In the 60 TP game, it was just fun rolling around with increased damage per minute and slapping people for tons of health. In the second Strv game, it was absolutely fantastic being in that back corner, trying to shoot, put in shells all across the board, firing on reload. The ability is just so much fun and really gets rid of a lot of the frustration of poor RNG, because if you miss a shell in the STRV in this game mode, it's your own fault. And so despite the loss, it ended up being a ton of fun. And finally, in this last game, I end up in a 1 versus 2, and I found that these 1 versus moments actually happen a decent bit, and there's been a lot of close games all throughout. And so I would say that Onslaught is a really, really fun game mode. I think there's a lot of things to like, but people hate it. And there's a reason. Because you lose points no matter what, if in a loss, people really start to get agitated. If you're not winning, you're not doing what you ought to do. And it's really frustrating. It really decreases the fun. Because on the loss that I just showed, 8,500 damage is still losing a significant number of points. And in the vast majority of your victories, you're gaining a small amount. If you have a bad game, you're going to lose twice that amount. And it really feels depressing and sort of gut-wrenching overall. I love what Wargaming has done with the abilities, with the tanks. I think it's got a different meta than the normal random queue. And I just wish that they would adjust some of the metrics, that people could progress more easily, because that would make it a lot less frustrating to play. It's a lot of fun in the basic game mechanics, but it's absolutely painful when you consider the token system or the reward system and how much losing can affect you. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. Take a look for our Tier 8 giveaway. Once we get 1,000 subscribers, I'll be giving away gold to 2 players and 1 tasty Tier 8 premium of your choice based on what's in the store to our ultimate winner. And with that said, I'm Lad, and I'm out.